My question has come because, well, for two things. The awareness of the galactics has come into my awareness, my work. And maybe the galactics were there before, but I didn't really acknowledge that that was the source of the information that I receive when I'm in trance. Also, when I was at my lowest from undiagnosed rheumatoid arthritis in overwhelming pain, I was down to 115 pounds, fully clothed. I was researching ways to kill myself because if this couldn't be reversed, um, I was going to leave. I just couldn't. The pain was intolerable. And as selfish as that sounds, and it is very self-serving to self-transition, but and I knew that. And then as I began treatment with a rheumatologist, I gradually, in tiny increments, got better and better. And so I would force myself to do what I could do, um, any little thing that I could do. I forced myself to do. And that's how I crawled up out of the hole that I was in. And that was taking responsibility for myself, perhaps the first time ever in my life. And so this is the framework of my question. Immediately, I'm seeing a lot of white, a milky white. Um, One of the healing levels is like this. It's like a very bright fog. I am dressed in blue, really, really beautiful blue, um, which is neither here nor there. And I feel as if I am simply going to sit on a disc, which is also this same blue, in this very bright, like a bright sunlit cloud. And I'm waiting for the information to come. I'm not sure I'm going to get a representative. Oh, I do have a representative. Fascinating. It looks like Tinkerbell, what we think of as Tinkerbell, of a star that's not that far away for me to focus on. We have come to you to inform you that the galactics are real, that we are with you, that we do care about certain aspects of humanity's evolution on your planet. We do care about the evolution of the planet and all the beings. We do care, and we are here. In respect of your question, in regards to your question, it is very natural for all species to look for resources beyond their sense of self or outside of their sense of self. This is because in the density of the planet that you're working with now, the um, the feeling of um, aloneness or vulnerability is very acute in this density. And it is very acute, particularly for those of you who do not understand that they are energetic beings, primarily having an experience in the density of this planet. And so, with people who um, don't have an expanded sense of themselves, and notice we were very careful not to use the word spiritual. It is a much overused word that has many incorrect connotations. But an expanded sense of yourself or an energetic sense of yourself is better, is a better word here than spirituality to use. The people who do not have an expanded sense of themselves feel even more vulnerable, even more terrified. And every human that listens to this has had the experience of being helpless and completely dependent when they were a tiny baby. No matter how loving and careful their guardians were, you all have that embedded in your memory of experience of being completely helpless, unable to determine whether you will survive or not. And yet the instinct to survival is incredibly strong in this place, this level that you are experiencing, this density of matter accumulated, amassed in a certain way that you interpret as your physical reality, which includes your body, of course. And so it is extremely natural for particularly humans who have had the experience of being helpless to understand that on some level they are very vulnerable, no matter how much money they have acquired in life, so that they feel invulnerable. And this is the driving force of greed in humans, and even in some animals. For example, your squirrels will collect much more food for the winter than they actually need, um, to ensure their physical survival. And they will add to their food store, their store of food, throughout the winter as they can. So humans are not um, the only species that overreacts to being completely helpless. But the pandemic of greed on your planet is, if you look at the people who are amassing more money than they could ever possibly spend in their lifetime, uh, you can be fairly sure that on some level they do not understand themselves as an expanded being in the greater reality of what they are. And notice we did not say who, we said what they are. And so this may be an interesting correlation to follow up on. And so, in this vulnerability of mammals, particularly, um, is a sense or a feeling that one needs security when um, when self-awareness or self-realization is in place, when free will is in place, when the ability to direct experience is in place. Everyone is naturally looking for a backup system, if you will, for readily available help, if you will. And now, certainly, family groups um, provide this for each other. You don't have a lot of family left, and yet the family that you have is becoming much more meaningful to you. And this is a very subtle thing. You probably don't think of your sister or your brother as being able to aid you if you really needed help. Um, but the instinct is still there to um, feel the most comfortable in a family, in a tribe, in a community, um, because resources then can be shared. Now, there is a tremendous amount of fear on your planet right now for very obvious reasons. And fear is very natural to any mammal because survival is necessary for experience, and also a fear of death, particularly a fear of suffering, a fear of a painful death. And with the interweb of communication globally now, the level of fear is multiplied a millionfold because you see the suffering of others and you think that could be me suffering. And so fear is rampant right now. Now, let's look at the remedies for the feeling of being extremely vulnerable. One of the first very obvious remedies is in the patterns of addiction for humans, so that they don't have to think about it on any level. Uh, it's a way of erasing their perceived vulnerability. And people, as they go around day to day, certainly don't think of themselves as vulnerable. Um, but we react to vulnerable people. Like even in the grocery store, when you see an elderly person counting out pennies to pay for a muffin, um, it absolutely breaks your heart because of the vulnerability. And of course, the um, the media uh, is not helpful for for many of you. Um, and so, in this time going forward, spirituality and belief systems are going to become more precious. The teachers are going to become more precious because everyone wants to be reassured. You know that line. Um, well, you have it on your refrigerator. I hate to spoil the ending, but everything is going to be okay. And that is what everyone wants to feel and hear. And so groups gravitate in different directions for this. Certainly, organized religions, the community of a religion, um, invokes a feeling of community and safety, a safety net, so to speak, where the other parishioners or participants would help you if you were out on the street. Someone from your church might take you in. And then there are the political tribes that you're well aware of. The uh, even people who seem to be dwelling in their hearts in hatred, um, are just extremely fearful and are clinging to that tribe that is also hating the same thing they are. So, um, and then there are the people who cling to the tribe of um, the psychic in all the different permutations of the, even though every human being has the natural ability to particularly read tarot, which is simply a tool, and yet the very intuitive readers um, are widely admired and followed. This is going to increase um, as the fear increases. Now, if you look at government, this is particularly a very um, a very good example of being taken care of or hoping to be taken care of by the government. And of course, your president right now, Biden, is very concerned with the suffering of the people that um, he represents, the suffering of the people in the country, the suffering of the people in the world. Religious leaders, such as the Dalai Lama, are also very concerned with the suffering of the people in the world. Now, the this is true. This is real. Biden and the Dalai Lama, and they're concerned um, for the way even the individual experiences suffering, or uh, and suffering. We need to clarify that a little bit uh, in terms of lack of basic needs, even suffering in terms of the lack of the financial ability to obtain medical aid. And so there are governments in countries that are very concerned for the well being of the people that they rule. And then there are rulers in countries where the ruler is not concerned with the suffering of people. They are concerned with perhaps the economic growth of the country. They are concerned perhaps with only the wealthiest members of society in their country. And so this is where propaganda comes in, of course, because the lie is that they do care in order to keep their position of power. So, at the very least, of course, when people lose their parents, who are their primary source of um, comfort and security, these are difficult losses. You know this yourself. And so let's get back to the theme of being responsible for oneself. This question is a very internal question. We're not talking about people who can work to earn the money to shelter themselves. We are talking about how we are programmed, or you are programmed as a human being, when you are born vulnerable to completely vulnerable. And all mammals are pretty much on this scale, to look to a group, a tribe, a parent to protect you and to save you. from dying when you can't save yourself. And so, on an exterior level, self responsibility is much more complicated. So, what we are talking about, though, today is internal self responsibility. And what this is on a subjective internal level is, again, as in much of your work, comes back to a matter of choice. And it's predominantly on an internal level, the choice to take care of oneself to the best of one's ability. So this would entail uh, everything you think of under the umbrella of health or healthy, um, which is exercise, hydration, nutrition, um, cleanliness, this sort of thing. Taking care of oneself is a choice that we make internally to do that. Now, of course, this is on the scale more toward creativity, more toward love, more toward self love than on the scale of self destructiveness. So, what we are presenting here is a little bit of a rosy um, picture or presentation of self responsibility. So, at the most basic level, self responsibility is physical care, but self love goes much beyond this physical care. Self love is expressed in the choice of thoughts and emotions that feel good. And now, um, many people, in order to even access the self awareness that they can choose their thoughts and that their thoughts direct emotion, or they can direct their emotion, which creates more beautiful thoughts in their mind. Uh, this can happen in many different ways, much of which you know about. Music is a kind of an automatic uplifting if it is uplifting music, if it is beautiful music. Uh, I mean, some people like jazz, some people like country and western, some people like classic. It Music is a vibrational tool to become self-aware and be able to direct emotion and thoughts. And then there's practices such as sitting quietly in the morning and being at peace and even reaching and thinking for the most positive thought you can. This is also taking self responsibility internally. And it really is internally that the self responsibility needs to be in people's awareness because self responsibility is a very big part of creativity. As you know yourself, that even though you love your work, sometimes isn't it just easier to watch YouTubes? Of course it is. And so the choices that you make, and we don't even want to call it self discipline because that has a negative connotation. It's more of, wow, I get to do this, or boy, I get to do this um, in terms of your work. So the the teachers that have taught the power of positive thinking, um, this is a very good avenue to self realization. I mean, I'm sorry, self responsibility. Well, self realization and self responsibility are connected because you have to really get to know yourself at some point in your life. Um, And I'm wondering if there's another part to this. I want to refocus on this light, which is the only representation I have for this. One of the questions that I wanted to ask on self responsibility has to do with self transition. Um, this still is kind of a muddy issue for me, even though I've worked with many people who self transition, and perhaps the continuity of their experience isn't terrific at first, but really within a fairly short amount of time, they're back on their feet and with help um, have oriented to how to continue experience without the physical body. Uh, the information is coming that um, help is what we're all looking for. We're all looking for an umbrella. Why do you think insurance is such a valuable commodity? You were actually thinking about this today because your homeowner's insurance refuses to cover pretty much any disaster that you have in your home. And you're kind of wondering, well, what would it actually cover? Because even in the contract itself, there are pages and pages and pages of what it doesn't cover. And so you wonder why you're sending them money every single year to not give you what you um, to not give you tangible help, but what is given in an insurance policy is intangible, um, intangible, uh, a feeling that somebody would come to your help, that somebody would come to your aid. And there's a balance. It's not as if we don't depend on each other. And obviously, people help each other. And this is going to become much more um, prevalent in your society if your civilization is to survive, is people helping each other. And everybody does need help from time to time. That's not what we're talking about here. You know the stories of the hermits that wanted to go it alone. Um, it was more, the homeless people. I mean, they're really trying to go it alone. But that's not the same as self responsibility. In a world of material, the necessity for material um, survival, no one really can go it alone. So when we're talking about self responsibility, to do as much as you can for yourself on an external basis, and then on an internal basis, take complete responsibility for your thoughts, for your self care, and for your emotions. And that is what self responsibility is. So I want to thank this being for this information. Um, I'm just rummaging around just for a second. Um, oh, yes, there is some more to this. There is some more to this. The part of your society that is the most vocal about not being helped, not being taken care of, not having what they need or want. There's something here about that. Oh, well, for one thing, because so many people do have their basic needs met, they can cause all kinds of trouble for other people. You're not in survival mode. Uh, but this needing somebody to rescue you, this is what I really wanted drill into in this meditation. Everyone really hopes that there is one person in the world that would come to their rescue if they really needed help. Um, we all want an umbrella, a safety net, however you want to express that. And for the theme of the galactics, the the big debate is, can this be proven or not? It's very similar to the deities that um, you chant to in your Vedic and Buddhist chants. Um, are the are the deities real? Do they exist? Are the galactics real? Do they exist? Humanity is waiting to be saved. Humanity wants to be saved because the human species on the whole knows that you're on the brink of losing your civilization, of losing the ability to sustain yourself. There is so much fear on the planet right now. And there is a collective call for somebody, something, some element to save you. And so then I have to ask, are the galactics real? Are the deities real? We're fairly certain that the Buddha and Jesus and Moses and Muhammad, and I'm sorry if I have eliminated some of the other um, um, avatars and teachers that were actually in bodies. Um, we're fairly sure that they're real because they were in physical at some point. It's funny, Jewel's song, Who Will Save Your Soul, just came up. I had asked and this is not coming from the trance material, I had asked a recently deceased, very good friend of mine, um, of what is real? And his answer was, everything is real. So, and again, this gets into belief, another topic that uh, I would like to drill into more in my work. If you believe that something is real, it is for you. And isn't that all that's important? So I'm saying, well, we didn't really get an answer to the galactic question, did we? Are the galactics real? Are they here to save us? And I'm going to wait a minute and see if I receive. I I am hearing yes, they are real and they do care about us. They won't save us from ourselves. That's an interesting phrase. It's up to us to save ourselves. And that is what self responsibility is. It is time for humans to realize that they have to save themselves. And with that, I'm fairly sure that we have reached the conclusion of this meditation. So I thank this entity, and I return to the flower in the center of my mind and back to my body.